There's some moving and shaking going on in the FCS in the Midwest. We'll give you the update on Tyler Roll and a couple other items as well. Plus, how UND's season went. And Aidan Bouman joins us on previewing USD's matchup in Missoula. Hot Mike starts now.
Hot Mike with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. I was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mike.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something.
Coach Dom Izzo, WDAY in Fargo, North Dakota.
Can you give me a layup or something?
Hot Mike. Presented by Northwestern Mutual.
That program is second to none.
On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo.
Good Wednesday morning. Welcome to the Snowplow edition of Hot Mike on WDAY Extra. KSFL TV. Good morning, everybody. In Sioux Falls, KNBN in western South Dakota, and ill parts in between on Inforum.com. It is Wednesday, the 10th of December. Officially plowing out, shoveling out, however you need to do it. Plow already came by twice here after I've been at the station, so my wife has already defeated it once. It seems like the Great Wall is back, so thanks to the city of Moorhead for that. Appreciate it. And hopefully everybody is safe and getting to where they got to go today. If you don't need to go anywhere, then take your time because it's going to take a little bit because there is plenty of snow out there. But it's December. It comes with the territory. So there is your customary, here we go, with weather to start the program here. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the show. I am Dom Izzo, host of said program with some burning quads here this morning after I did not listen to our news report. I saw Stefan Sundin, one of our meteorologists, give the tips on how to properly shovel. I did not. He even did it with a mic yesterday, which is even more impressive. I did not follow that, but we'll persevere, get through. We got a big show on tap here on a Hump Day Wednesday. Lots to get to. There's news aplenty that'll happen as we're on the air today with coaching in this part of the world. Namely, with a couple people we know quite well going for jobs that may surprise you, maybe not. We'll get to that in just a little bit. We're going to have a football feast here on this Wednesday. Even with the Bison out of the FCS playoffs, that doesn't mean our chatter around it will be done today. I was thinking about that last night. Like, how much do we want to hit this now with NDSU season done? And I know plenty are going to want to chat about it. Actually, I discussed things with the head football coach at North Dakota State yesterday for a bit. He will be here on Friday in studio. Tim Polasek will be here to discuss the end of the year and what's ahead because there's still some movement going on. We'll hit that on the Bison Media Zone as well coming up later this morning at 10:30 to discuss that, including also in that the new mid-major women's basketball polls out. The Bison women are ranked in there for the first time in a couple of years. So we'll get to that coming up in just a little bit. But we mentioned the moving and shaking going on around college football, which is not going to stop because we're in the crazy season. Tyler Roll is going to be back coaching college football. The West Fargo native reportedly is going to be leaving the Detroit Lions after one season and taking the open job as the offensive coordinator at Iowa State. Roll, of course, was the running back and assistant head coach at Iowa State in the 2024 season after leaving North Dakota State for a brief stop at Tennessee State as their offensive coordinator, and then, of course, went and took the job at Iowa State where he spent the 24 year, and then after last season was hired by Dan Campbell to coach the tight ends, which he's done with the Detroit Lions. Report out of the Detroit Free Press is that Roll will finish the year with the Lions and then join former South Dakota State head coach Jimmy Rogers at Iowa State. Now, you'll wonder, and I was first to think this, like, why would Tyler leave the NFL? Reportedly, money is over $1 million to do so. That would be a good reason to do that. But again, once you're in the club in the NFL, that's the way to go. But and this is what we heard with Tim Polisic got the job here, if he wants to be the head football coach at North Dakota State someday, that to go coordinate at a bigger school, or obviously went to the NFL, that's the kind of resume that you'd like to have. So he's going to go do that now at Iowa State. And frankly, this is game on now here in the upper Midwest for recruiting. Knowing full well who the football coach now is at Iowa State, and he's, from all the reports out there, is targeting certain members of South Dakota State's roster already, and I'm sure he's not the only one. It's game on. I know for Jackrabbit fans, if they had any misgivings about what's going on, well, here, this is what's up. And Tyler offered a bunch of guys that are in the North Dakota class of 2027, Luke Starcevic being one out of Kindred. He was the first. Iowa State was the first to offer the younger Starcevic out of Kindred a couple years ago when he was still coaching at Iowa State. So if you don't think that the battle is on, then you're being naive here, because it is certainly back. So that is the latest there. Now, obviously, we don't know Jake Landry's status. Jake, of course, took Tyler's open job. He took the running back coach position at Iowa State under Matt Campbell. We don't know if Jake's going with Campbell to Penn State. Noah Pauly's been the wide receivers coach there over the last handful of years after leaving NDSU. We don't know if Noah's going to Penn State yet. That is still to be decided. Now, Danny Freund was Rogers' OC at Washington State. There's another name that's out there now. So we believe Jesse Bobbitt is leaving Washington State. He's going to be the interim coach for the Cougars in their bowl game, and then going to join and be the defensive coordinator for Rogers at Iowa State. Bobbitt, of course, a former great Jackrabbit linebacker as well. So the names are out there, names we know really well, and be really interested to see who's going to land where. I would say here in our own backyard that there are, I'm sure, a couple of Bison assistants that are going to get targeted as well. It just happens every year, and be intrigued to see how this goes, because this is uncharted territory here for Bison football to be done this early and now have not only the portal be out there, but also have various coaches being available. That's a brand new world here that NDSU is trying to navigate. Now, they're not done, though, in terms of adding to the roster of the Bison. We had heard this when Polisic was here a week ago today, in terms of we are hopeful going to get another couple of additions to the incoming class of 2026. That became official yesterday afternoon with the signing of Colorado running back Braylon Tolliver announced that he has signed with the Bison. And this is not your run-of-the-mill commitment story. Tolliver had originally committed to Oregon State back in May. Tolliver actually visited Fargo a couple of times. Actually, I met him in early April when he was at an NDSU spring football practice. He and his teammate, Gabe Sema, Gabe actually signed with Northern Arizona last week. Tolliver, 5'10", 190 pounds. You can see he's got some jukes to him, some speed. This one, I'm still not sure how he got out of there to score a touchdown. From Erie, Colorado, about a half hour north of Denver. Plays in the largest class of high school football in the state of Colorado, which is maybe worth mentioning considering where North Dakota State's future might be in college football. Just throw that out there. And adds an element at the running back spot that Polisic has been craving after. Now, the intriguing part about this, obviously the amount of FBS offers, I think he had 11 or 12 total offers. Half of them were FBS schools, and Oregon State is relevant because Polisic interviewed there a couple weeks ago. We know that. He's also going to enroll early. He's going to be here next month, along with, you met Tucker Thieneman last week on our show, Earl Brown, who we had on our show last week, Caden Ward, a young man out of Nebraska that's going to be here. So the Bison are getting 4 guys of the incoming 26 class that are going to be here in January. That's a big deal for the upcoming recruiting class. So they are not done in terms of adding. They added, obviously, a couple other guys as well, including a kicker. We're hopeful to have him on later because the size of the guy is not your typical kicker. that is a really unique story as well that hopefully we'll get to tell that here on the show in the upcoming days and weeks because we've got a little bit of runway now with the Bison football season being done. But Tolliver becomes now the 21st commitment for the class of 2026. And again, spurred Oregon State to sign with NDSU. They're pretty pumped about that one. That's a late flip, much like in the likes of Elijah Wayne, who they flipped late last year, remember, from South Dakota State to sign with NDSU. And Elijah had a pretty good true freshman season for the Bison. Some other coaching news happening here this morning. This just broke before we came down here to do the show. Friend of ours that's been on our program a couple of times that has led the Mercer Bears to a couple of great back-to-back seasons, SoCon championships. Mike Jacobs, evidently later today, is going to be named the head coach of the Toledo Rockets. That's according to Pete Thamel of ESPN. Candle left for the UConn job. The UConn job was freed when Jim Mora Jr. took that to go to Colorado State. Jacobs' career record of 94-23. He's been great the last couple of years. Obviously led Mercer, and that's inside the Fargo Dome there, to the quarterfinals a season ago. Obviously a disappointment this past weekend, losing by $1 billion to South Dakota. But again, they won the SoCon. And he's an Ohio guy. He played at Ohio State. We've had him on each of the last couple of years. He's been great to visit with, just a good football coach. And he is going to Maction to take the Toledo job, which is, if you're ranking the jobs in the MAC, I'd say the Toledo one is a pretty darn good one, all parts considered there, especially with Northern Illinois set to move to the Mountain West next season. That Toledo job moves up. So tip of the cap, and that's a good job. Mercer has become a program now that people know. They've been ranked in the top 10 each of the last couple years. They've been a playoff seed. They were 7 last year. They were 6 this season, that people understand, all right, that's a program that is in Georgia, can get some good football players to come there. That's a good job as well. Now, the intriguing part is what happens to Mercer's quarterback. That's Braden Atkinson, who is the Jerry Rice Award winner as the freshman of the year, who threw for 3,600 yards and 35 touchdowns. That will be acknowledged with that in early January in Nashville as the Rice winner. Does he enter the portal now as well? You have to imagine he was probably being courted. Heck, Mercer's quarterback last year went to Oklahoma. So it would not be out of the range of possibilities to consider that the guy who won the Rice, you look at it now, the guy who won the Rice Award last year ended up going to Miami, had a pretty good year. Marty Brown, obviously. That's the, I don't know if it's necessarily a curse or a bad thing, but if you end up winning that award, you end up getting on the target of high major programs. So there's a change there with the Toledo Rockets taking Mike Jacobs from the Mercer Bears as their next head coach. And I believe now, at least of the top FBS Group of 5 jobs, I think almost everybody is full now. It was a quick cycle, I will tell you that. There wasn't much waiting around, especially after Penn State opened, which happened at early October, and the last 2 months of that roller coaster ride is now filled out, and there we go. So that's some football news off the top of our program here on a busy Wednesday morning. We got lots to get to here on a snowy Wednesday. Here's our guest lineup brought to you by Northwestern Mutual. Our guy Drew Trafton is here celebrating his Montana Grizz are still playing after they put up 50 on South Dakota State. The Grizz now get a date with the University of South Dakota. Plenty on that matchup coming up here in our show this morning. That is the prime game, the 2:30 game on Saturday on ABC on WDAY. We'll chat plenty about that and a couple other things, including the famous World Cup draw is now down, so we'll get to that as well coming up in just a few minutes. At 9:35, South Dakota senior quarterback Aidan Bouman will join the program. The Coyotes are the last Dakota school standing after when they left Fargo, losing 51-13, whatever it was that day, and thinking their season is spiraling out of control. They had lost to Lamar. They had lost their opener to Iowa State. That was their third loss of the season. after they got beat here. They lost to Illinois State as well. That game was in Vermillion, part of the 7 road wins that the Redbirds have racked up. They have not lost since. They are still alive after a 47-0 whitewash of those Mercer Bears, and now they've got a date against Montana. Good conversation with Aidan. I had that late last night. We'll play that for you coming up at 9:35. And at 10 o'clock, our guy Tom Miller will join us to put a bow on UND football for 2025. And frankly, it's not over yet. Fighting Hawks season ended on the field on Saturday afternoon in Tarleton, but obviously a couple players have already entered the portal. Notably, Sawyer Seidel is there. What goes next for Eric Schmidt's team, and looking ahead to 2026. We'll do that with Tom to put a bow on things for football in Grand Forks coming up at 10 o'clock. That, our Bison Media Zone show as well, coming up at 10:30 this morning. So, an active show here on a snowy Wednesday. We're glad you're joining us. We're just getting started. Hot Mic returns after this on WDAY Extra, KSFL, KMBN, and Inforum.com.
The biggest Seahawks, Sounders, and Mariners fan in the FM area. It's time for Views with Drew.
So I got a message already here right before you came on. It says, make sure to pay attention to the back judge on the South Dakota State touchdown against Montana that you're showing as part of the discussion with Drew. Dude has serious wheels. It ends up providing a bit of a block. I missed this.
It was...
Really?
He takes off. He makes sure he gets to the end zone. It's pretty impressive. Yeah. That was something else.
Well,
for sure.
if we're following the game, and frankly, I didn't watch as much of the Montana SDSU game as I wanted to because the game in Fargo ended up being as tight as it went down. But I looked down once and saw the Grizz were up 15-14. I'm like, all right, just we thought, close game. The next time I look, it was 36-22, and then obviously they end up putting 50 up on South Dakota State.
Yeah, that game started out exactly how I think so many of us thought it would.
You feared with a 95-yard touchdown.
Oh my goodness! I mean, it was one of those things where it was like, okay, this is the game we thought it was going to be with a resurgent Chase Mason and a Missouri Valley football team coming in and pushing around our lines.
Oh, I see it now. That is a heck of a blast. That is unbelievable.
Yeah. He made sure he got there. That was pretty impressive.
Reels.
Yeah. And then. It was interesting. I wasn't expecting that out of the Grizzlies. And I probably underestimated them a little bit, but just how explosive they are offensively, and their defense. They're getting guys back. And that they're doing just enough to make it really difficult on really elite athletes. And they're doing a good job. And that game was. It was nice. It was nice to be able to, 30 unanswered points, and you're like, okay, these guys are something.
Khalil Ayat looked really good. I mean, this little Statue of Liberty play to Gilman.
Yeah.
This one here is really sweet.
And that's when I kind of was like, okay, this is over.
They're putting everything in their bag here, right?
Yeah. And they did give us I was surprised. We saw some looks from the Grizzlies that we haven't seen all year, and they got players involved that we hadn't been involved all year into it. And it's like, okay, they're ready for this thing. And Houck said after the game, Bobby Houck, their coach, was talking about Khalil Ayat. And he said the game looked like it had slowed down for him. And that has always been my knock on Ayat's play, is it just looked a little too fast, in big moments. It was very evident. It was like, ooh, that was just, he didn't see it. And
the second half against UND last year, like in Grand Forks, he was completely rattled there.
Yes, and this season it's been getting progressively better, but that was, at that point, you watched him play last weekend, and it was like, we've got something here. If this guy sticks around another year, we'll see where these playoffs go. But it's like you've got to feel pretty good about that.
So we're going to hear from Aidan Bouman here coming up after you're done. So of all the teams left of the Dakotas, it's South Dakota
we're back to this
that is coming here.
Right?
I think there was a lot of talk specifically in South Dakota that, hey, we could have an all South Dakota quarterfinal.
For sure.
That's not going to be in the case here.
Vermillion.
But USD is rolling now.
Oh, my goodness.
And which is amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm spill everything here with my conversation with Bauman. But when they left Fargo, that's their third loss of the year. They were donezo, and here they are, still playing.
You look at the statistical split between their last like 5 games and then everything before, and it's like this is a different team completely.
Now the Mercer game's going to skew that a bit because they curb stomped them.
Yeah.
And they did in the second half with Drake. So I'll go back to the finale they had with SIU. They go 3 overtimes and win the game they had to have.
Yeah.
They had to have that one.
Was it 3? I thought it was 5.
Oh, 5. Yeah, 5 overtimes. So they win that game.
Insane.
They win against the Jacks. The prior week they beat UND. They've been playing playoff games for the better part of 6-7 weeks already.
Right. And I think looking ahead at this matchup, you look at Montana, and it's like strength on strength. It is like I don't know how to really even make heads or tails of it, because it's like the Coyote strength. The LJ Phillips, the Aidan Boumans really match up with Montana's Eli Gilman and Khalil Ayat, and it's like Fenner and
Michael Wortham.
It's like they're really carbon copies of each other in a lot of ways, and but their seasons have been so drastically different. So it's like, okay, well, what's gonna win out here?
Yeah.
And so I'm endlessly fascinated by this game. I'm not looking as a Grizz fan past the Coyotes at all. And that goes back to last week. We were talking about the Grizzlies have this gauntlet of games, South Dakota State, South Dakota, win that, then you're likely facing Montana State and Bozeman. And it's just like, and then you win that and you're on to a national championship matchup.
Well, it's completely opened up though. With the Bison losing, I mean, now that side is going to produce the winner of the championship. Whoever ends up being it. If it's South Dakota, if it's Montana, or if it's the Cats, it's one of those 3.
It'll feel like that side should have earned it. Right.
Yep.
I mean, just because it'll be iron sharpening iron, because you've got your probably 3 biggest brands left in the tournament, on that side.
It's so odd with the Bison out. It's just so different.
It feels like
right?
a different universe, all of a sudden with that. It's like, well, even looking at the bracket on Sunday when it was like updated, and it's like you see Illinois State in that line. And it's just like, woo.
Yeah.
Like that just looks like.
Right, because the other side, I mean, it's completely opened up for somebody to make it to Nashville and have it. I mean, Tarleton obviously never been there. Illinois State has been there once, never won.
Nova 09.
Villanova's the last time I bring that up. They beat Montana. And then obviously with Davis, who hasn't had any success in the FCS level, was all in Division II.
Yeah.
So it just
here they are,
wild on the other side.
Yeah, and the idea that one of those teams is
going to
make
it
playing
there.
for a national title, and I mean, you never know. Like in that game, like they could win. For sure, but it does seem like that other, the Montanas and the South Dakota side of the brackets, the juggernaut to beat at this point.
We're going to check in with Montana State tomorrow. Did you see the end of what happened to the Cats Yale game with Julius Davis and Brent Vegan? Now, Veeks came out Monday, put it to bed of what they wanted to have happen. I will say, without any context watching it, it looked bad. It looked really bad.
Yeah, and I thought Montana State did a really good job of getting Davis out there with a statement and then Vegan addressing it right after.
Monday.
And I saw a lot of criticism of the reporters not asking about it in the post-game presser, and I don't know how much of that they saw.
Right.
I mean, like, because you go straight from the game to the presser, like you're kind of hoofing it over there.
Sometimes you're racing down to get
so
down.
It's like they may not have seen that at all. But I thought they did a good job addressing it. The context definitely changes it a lot. But it also was one of those things where it's like, I mean, there's high emotions in the playoffs. They're playing for a lot.
They struggled with Yale. That game was way closer.
I don't know if you got to see any
I
of that.
only saw the score late in the fourth. I'm like, what is happening there?
Yeah, Yale was physical. Like it's so weird because you could have had, if Harvard had won that automatic qualifier, they go out and they obviously their matchup would have been different, but. It's like
Yale doesn't even make it. Yale's not in.
Yale's not in the playoffs.
No way.
I mean, at times against Montana State, and I think Montana State played poorly, and they own up to that. But it's like, boy, they looked very much like they belonged.
Yes,
like a hair's breadth from the quarterfinal. Yes. In some moments, and it's like for a non-scholarship program, like that's pretty good.
So now they have SFA on Friday night.
Yeah.
They're going to win by $1 billion.
I think they're going to be.
Montana State will roll
I
Friday
think
night.
that Yale game was a shot across the bow,
yes.
and now they're going to be like just primed and ready to go.
And it's ironic because we talked about this, and I mentioned earlier on the show, this week. Last year was the all-time team. They had the Walter Payton winner.
Yeah.
They had their best team they ever had, and they still couldn't win it. Now, with a team that he totally reconfigured, I think they could win this thing.
Oh, I think they're the heavy favorites
Right?
at this point. And Montana or
just
South
ironic
Dakota,
on
I think,
that.
will play them very tough in Bozeman. I think that'll be a very, very
Boy,
hard
if it's
game.
next week, if it's Grizz Cats, and for a semifinal, first time ever in the postseason, holy cow!
Yeah, and that's going to feel. It could feel really weird because from my standpoint with that rivalry, and I think for a lot of people who not live and die by it, but breathe in that rivalry constantly. It's more about it hurts so much more to lose it than it does feel good to win because it's more relief when you win. It's like, oh, thank goodness we beat that team.
So
but this is different. It's so different because there's a title berth on the line.
Yep.
And not only a title berth, but as we've been talking, probably the inside
I would
track to
say
win
you'd
the
be
title.
the favorite to win it. There's no doubt.
Neither one of those schools has gone to the championship in their latest 3 appearances, the 2 for Montana State and Montana, thinking they were the title favorite. They certainly didn't go in thinking we
last
don't
year
have
Montana
a shot.
State was the favorite. Montana State last year was the favorite over the Bison.
But when you're playing against NDSU,
Correct, but
in
just
Frisco,
on paper, the Bobcats were the favorite last year since they were the one.
Sure.
I will say this: if it ends up just the TV nerd in me, if that ends up being Cats Grizz, do they get the night game? That'd be 6:30 on ESPN 2, 5:30 Mountain, or do they play on ABC?
Right, you put them on national TV.
It would be 3:00 Central, 2:00 on Mountain
I don't know.
Time.
That's a good question.
Because
I'd put them in prime time.
Let's say it's Davis and Tarleton. You're not putting that on ABC.
Yeah, you can't. You
right?
really can't. Yeah,
You have to put the Montanas there, even though
I
at
think so.
night it'd be amazing.
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
Either way, that atmosphere is going to be bonkers.
really, really good.
But it's it is interesting.
All right, I had to carve out a couple minutes. I know we're running late, but we were texting fervently on Friday when the World Cup draw was out. I was actually doing the simulator here on the Athletic. They had a simulator for it.
Okay.
I bored our audience with that for about 2 minutes. Did we get a good one?
I thought so. I've seen reaction on both sides where some people are dancing in
your
the
guy
streets
Alexi
saying,
Lala said
this is the best thing we could possibly have.
Yes.
And then I've seen the other side of it where there's if you take their combined FIFA rankings, then our group's actually really difficult. And I don't think so. We ended up with two countries that we've just beaten.
So Paraguay, we have
in Australia.
In Australia.
We've beaten both those countries. And then we have an unknown. It's like Turkey or Kosovo.
And that's not going to be known until March or something?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be, we're going to see with the playoff. I think there's thank you, March 31st. From what we could have had a nightmare scenario. It's like Norway and
seeing
Morocco,
that out there. Yeah,
and
Brazil got hosed because they got Morocco in their bid.
Yeah, and there are a lot of. There are some tough groups out there. But no, I think it's great, and I think I misinformed your audience last week that. I thought with more groups, fewer teams would advance from each group, but they did add that extra round in. So you go from a round of 48 to 32.
Okay.
So
boy, it's virtually almost impossible then not to advance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you really got to be bad.
You can be a third place team.
So you got to be like 1998 U.S. bad and not advance.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't want to leave it to chance, though. You definitely want to take one of those top 2 spots, and you would really like to be in the driver's seat in the first spot because that gives you better matchups in the knockout rounds.
So a win and a draw we're through, probably?
Likely? 4 points could probably get it done. I think you'd want 7. Just comfortably 7. That's a good number to aim for. And I think it's very realistic to get 2 wins from this.
Can I tell you, that was the worst television show I've ever seen in my life. That was 2.5 hours. And it was an abomination.
You could do it in 15 minutes.
Horrible.
And
it was awful.
I just said 30 minutes maybe.
Oh my, no, 15 is right.
Yeah,
we could have been in and out.
You could just, they do
Wayne
the Powerball.
Gretzky trying to pronounce some of the country names. That was not great.
I think he was
Shaquille
trying to-
O'Neal up there. I mean, it was. I get again.
Yeah.
We're hosting this. And
You make a big deal out of it, Fox. But my goodness,
I mean, the scripting of that was
was tough.
horrible.
That was tough.
I mean,
it was
I
a
thought
tough look.
every year at the Masters, right? They do that horrendous interview in Butler Cabin where the guy who wins the who won the Green Jacket the year before is just sitting there
Yeah.
like a bump on a log and just had to, like, I always think that's the most awkward bit in television all
For
year.
sure. Yeah.
This topped it by 10.
I think so.
It was horrible.
Yeah, they've got to do it a little, just like
Oh,
do
my
the quick draw,
gosh.
like quick draw the groups, and then do like they
was
do with
something
the
else.
the bracket reveals, and just like go through and just spend more time on analysis on what you see from
Yeah,
the groups,
right.
than the creation of the groups themselves and the 50 songs and awards
yes.
and just weird introductions and hey, we've got this comedian here.
Right, wait, what was Kevin Hart doing there?
I don't know. It's
The whole thing. If this is what we got to look forward to in June, then
I think
boy.
they'll clean it up a bit, streamline this
Just
sucker.
because the actual games will be fun, that was off the rails.
It was FIFA
man.
for you, yeah.
What's the plan for Saturday? What's the viewing party like for Saturday afternoon?
I think again, like I try to stay as level-headed as I can when I'm on your show or when I'm like or I'm social media. Like I'll try to stay level-headed and try to be fair. But when the game starts, like last weekend, it's just like the fan comes out and it's like you have to lock it in the basement. And that's kind of what we'll probably
Your
end up
buddy
doing.
was telling me he wants to take the train again to go. Mike Zier wants to do that. So, I mean, if this happens
Hey,
next
Coach.
week, you got to go.
Yeah,
You have to go next week.
We've been exploring some options because that's
Perfect for this
it's-
time of year. That's what everybody says. We're exploring our options about what our future is going to be.
Exactly.
That's perfect.
I'll borrow the line.
Enjoy the game, man. Thanks for
thank
coming
you so
by.
much.
Drew Trafton joining us again. We got Coyotes and the Grizz on ABC on WDAY Saturday at 2:30. Speaking of the Coyotes, we come back. USD quarterback Aidan Bouman joins the program to preview the matchup with Montana and still being alive in the FCS playoffs. It's coming up when we come back. Welcome back, everybody. Wednesday morning show rolls on. Tom Miller will join us from the Grand Forks Herald coming up in our second hour. Wrap up UND's football season. Bison Media Zone as well coming up at 10:30. We'll chat everything Bison football and some Bison basketball coming up with our guy Jeff Kolpak at about 10:35 this morning. We mentioned it in our previous segment, the game that I think we're all looking forward to now with the other quarterfinals out there, right? It's Villanova-Tarleton State is Saturday morning. You've got Montana State and SFA on Friday night. Illinois State and UC Davis is the late Saturday afternoon window. The one in the middle of the day is the last Dakota team, the University of South Dakota, to take on the University of Montana in Missoula. Last night I had a chance to visit with South Dakota starting quarterback Aidan Bouman to ask him about this ride they're still on. Again, when they left Fargo, they had lost 3 games. They were 2-3. They played 12 straight weeks. And here they are in the quarterfinals. I started our conversation with about that after losing at NDSU, what the confidence of the team was.
I think I would have. I think, obviously we got punched in the mouth there, and I wouldn't necessarily say it was a turning point, but I think just we stuck with it. We stuck that we knew we needed to all season, and I think a lot of guys bought into that, especially after that game. So I think I would believe you if you said that. I believe in this team and what we have going on.
The next 3 games you won. Was there anything tangibly different after that? After the game in NDSU?
I wouldn't say so. I'll give a huge credit to the offensive coaches. I think we were trying to find our identity a little bit. We had a lot of new pieces, so I think that they've done a fantastic job up until now, and working through the kinks in the beginning of the season. They've done a great job of tailoring it to what we're good at now, and you've obviously seen it now with LJ and Lorenzo and a lot of other guys making some big time plays.
I mean, Charles goes down. You got to be thinking you lose at Lamar, you lose in Fargo. Like, this is not at all what I signed up for. Just when in your mind did it turn? Like, hey, confidence is still there, or was it always there? The confidence there to go and do this?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't necessarily say that the confidence changed and it clicked, but again, I think the chemistry of the new guys that we had. Just slowly building it throughout the entire year. I think we would be naive to think that we were going to come out and be firing on all cylinders week 1 with how many pieces and just guys that we lost that had a lot of experience. We had to fill some gaps, and so working through those rough patches and getting to where we are now, I wouldn't say that's crazy. I think it was just a matter of time.
Aiden, you lose the Illinois State game. Then there's no wiggle room. What was that? Did you even have to talk to the guys anything then, or was it unspoken that okay, there's no more room for error here?
Yeah, unspoken. Again, I think the leadership on this team has done a tremendous job this year. We did lose a lot of pieces, but also had returned a lot of guys that had experience. So it was, there might have been just a little bit more edge. Again, like you said, the 3 games there was no wiggle room, and you could have argued that maybe 5 and got in, but the biggest thing that we kept portraying and saying to everybody was, we don't leave it up to anyone else. We control our destiny. Don't leave it up to the hands of someone else to decide that for us.
Those 3 games, I mean, the UND game, South Dakota State game, especially, I want to talk about the SIU game in a second. Just describe, are you playing then loose, like knowing, hey, we're just going to go out here and play? Or how is it not to play tight, I guess is maybe the best way to ask that.
Yeah, I think, truthfully, I think I'll say after the NDSU game, I've played a lot looser. I think I was, again, with how much, going back to the new guys and stuff, I was playing tight because I was trying to make everything work for everyone. I was trying to do too much myself when this is a team game. There's 11 guys on the field. I can't do everything for everyone. And so from that point on, and again, those last 3 games, it was, I trust the guys. And again, like you've seen some of those guys making those big time plays, and truthfully, it doesn't have a lot to do with me. I'm just give them the ball and let them go to work. So trusting the other 11 or other 10 guys, I should say, out there has been the biggest thing for me.
The SIU game. So I think it's 31-13 or 31-17. What is your mindset when, all right, hey, this is it. Like we're in tough straits here.
Yeah. Again, I think just that in the back of your mind, don't let anyone else control our destiny. I think I like to pride myself that I don't make any moment, too big or different than any of the others. But I think I'd be lying when there maybe wasn't just a little bit more in me that's like, I'm going to do absolutely everything I can to get the job done. And again, that's just a testament to the other guys that were out there doing their job.
I remember talking to you in Sioux Falls. I know the schedule is what it is, but you played 12 straight weeks, man. How much did you love the bye week after winning in Carbondale?
Yeah, it was definitely nice. Just some of those guys that, had bumps and bruises all season that really never got the opportunity to get them fully healed up. So it was definitely well-deserved and well-earned bye week for some of those guys that have been going through it.
To see then where you were in the bracket and looking at it like, hey, there's an opportunity for us to maybe rip off a couple. Just what were your thoughts when you saw the 24 teams and where you were placed?
Yeah, I think, wherever we were going to be, we were ready to compete. I think it was obviously, our first draw was nice with a familiar opponent. I love being a very cerebral quarterback. So obviously understanding the defense that I had played already this year was definitely a big plus. But, whoever we were going to get drawn to and play first, we were ready to go. And, we try to kind of say nameless, faceless opponent and go to work.
Describe what last Saturday was like. Have you had a better start in your time in Vermilion than that game on Saturday?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was definitely a special game. I've said it definitely was the most complete game that we've played as a team this year, all 3 phases. So super happy for everyone that stepped on the field. I feel like a lot of guys did their job really well, but also at the same time, and the exciting thing is there still was a lot to improve on. I think that there's, some special teams plays that we watched together as a team, even offensively. I missed a few throws. There's always things to get better at, which is exciting when you're a competitor.
You've played in some awesome environments, obviously for your time at Ames to Fargo, Brookings, Bozeman last year. What have you heard about Missoula and what to expect on Saturday?
Yeah, it's going to be a fun opportunity and a great environment. I think, we're going to be ready for the challenge. I think last week we prepared really well for the elements. It was a wet and rainy game. We spent a lot of time in our little miniature wet room, we called it, which is where the pool used to be, and we were dousing the balls in water. And it took us a few days to catch the ball really well. But I mean, it showed on Saturday. I don't think we had any drops, so it was really fun to see that. We'll be outside almost the whole time, getting ready for the weather and cranking up the noise, and we'll be ready.
I know I talked with Travis about this the week you guys came up here. about LJ. Was that a surprise to you guys, or you saw his capability in practice, like he just needed an opportunity and go?
Yeah, I don't think it was a surprise at all. That's a guy that's worked his tail off his entire time that he's been here, never complained, never begged for reps, thought he wasn't getting the right amount of playing time. He's one of the best kids you can be around. He's always happy. He's always got a smile on his face, brings a great energy. And yeah, it wasn't a surprise. I knew that guy had it in him, and he was ready when his number was called.
How much are you enjoying this, knowing that so many people wrote you guys off at the end of September, and here you are, you're the last Dakota school still standing?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it just because of my team and the guys that have put the work in. I personally, and I know a lot of guys are like this, we never listen to the outside noise, and you can't, because it truthfully doesn't matter. We have the 150 total coaches, players, staff that are in this building, and our families that support us, and that's who matters. And, I'm just happy for the guys and seeing their hard work pay off right now.
Leaving the field in Bozeman last year, just now here you go, you're going back to the state of Montana. Have you thought about, man, ironic that here we go doing this again?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say ironic, but definitely just, again, happy and excited for the opportunity. A lot of guys haven't been in the playoffs that are on our team right now, or haven't been a part of a winning program. So to be able to have these opportunities, it's what you live for as a competitor, and going into a hostile environment against a really good team, it's what you live for. It's exciting. It fires you up. So we're gonna be ready to go.
How much have you kept out of your own mind about this is the last fall camp, just knowing, hey, now you're playoffs. It could be over here. How do you keep that out of your mind, or do you embrace that?
I think there's certain times where you embrace it, and there's certain times where you don't think about it. I think right now there's no thinking about it. That Southern game, I think there's a part of me that's like, I don't want someone else to decide this is my last game. You know what I mean? And now we're at the point where no one else can decide it but us. So I think, there's, in my mind right now, there's no, this is the last. It's you have to treat it like this is, we're Tuesday right now. What are we doing base downs? Tomorrow, what are we doing on third down and red? You know what I mean? Just same stuff every week.
What has been the fan support when you saw it? Did you get some people to go to Georgia last week?
Yeah, I got a few. A huge shout out to Back the Pack, the podcast. They've done an unbelievable job covering us this year. They made their way out, and they had their flag, which was awesome. My wife's family, my family, one of my dad's old teammates that he played with, they were all out there in their ponchos and raincoats, just cheering their butts off the whole time. So it was nice to have a few people out there.
8 teams left, 2 of them out of the Valley. I know you know how tough it is. What's that tell maybe people on the outside about what you see on a week-to-week basis here?
Yeah, just a lot of really good football teams. A lot of very physical football teams, very disciplined football teams. It prepares you for the December and January time of the season. You're playing against really good teams at this time of year, but we're very lucky and fortunate for the opportunity all season to play against a lot of playoff caliber teams. So definitely lucky to be in this conference and prepare us for this time of year.
I got to ask you the typical sports broadcaster question of a game like this. You need a quick start. Is that necessary, like you had on Saturday in Mercer? Do you need that this coming week?
Yeah, I think that we're going to strive for that. That's what we try to do every single game. Obviously there's going to be a factor with the crowd, and you want to limit their momentum as much as you can. But whatever happens, you're going to have to play the next play, and that's what we're going to do.
This was awesome, man. Thanks so much for it. Safe travels. Good luck on Saturday. Okay.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Dom.
Thanks, bud.
Conversation there with Aidan Bouman late last night as they get ready for their matchup with Montana. South Dakota again. You look at how this year went, and they got blown out at Iowa State, right? Then they came back and lost the game at Lamar. They're 0-2. Remember sitting here like, it's over. It's donezo, right? And they came back and they beat Drake, and they beat Northern Colorado, and neither game was awfully impressive. And they were 2-2 coming up here for the last weekend of September, the Valley opener. Remember, we were talking about it. We had Johansson on the show heading into the game. Still we're still figuring it out, but we're going to see. And boy, they got the doors blown off. NDSU, there was 2 games the Bison played about as good as they played all year. South Dakota was one, South Dakota State was the other. And you're wondering, and I remember Kyle Emanuel and I were talking about as they were leaving the field that day, like, this could go really sideways for USD. But they had Murray State They had Indiana State. They had Northern Iowa, their next three. So I'm not going to say 3 layups, but 3 layups. And frankly, they handled Murray. They struggled with Indiana State. That game was into the fourth quarter, and Northern Iowa wasn't necessarily as much of a blowout as you'd like it to be. But they won the games. So they're sitting there after they had won that. They're at 5-3. And they had Illinois State coming in to Vermillion. And the Redbirds won the game. So at that point, they're 5-4 and thinking it's not going to happen. They still hadn't played South Dakota State yet. They hadn't played UND yet, and they had to go to Southern Illinois to end the season. Remember, the bye week was the last week of the season. And the way they played against UND, and again, that wasn't pretty. Remember, they got stopped, I think, at the 1-yard line, the 2-yard line, on 4 straight run plays to L.J. Phillips. Ended up being a safety because UND got a punt blocked out of the back of the end zone, so it worked out. And they got a fumble return for a touchdown in that game. They picked off Jerry Kaminsky, I want to say 3 times in that game. So defensively, they came around. South Dakota State, they made the big plays. You saw it there. Southern Illinois, the 5 overtime game is going to be remembered forever on how they won that game because they were down by 18 points in the third quarter and rallied to win. And that got them in. And you looked at it, and I think a lot of us saw the bracket come out like, oh, they got a chance here to do something. And here they are, now with a huge opportunity, again in a place where nobody's won on the road. Drew and I were just talking about this before he left. The last time a visitor won a road playoff game in Missoula, Coastal Carolina in 2013. It's been a bit since somebody's gone in there and won. Well, all right, we'll break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up our first hour. Tom Miller coming up in hour 2 to chat some UND football and what the offseason lies ahead for the Fighting Hawks. Back here on a snowy Hump Day Wednesday show after this.
This is Hot Mike. Hot Mike. On the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2, ready to rock and roll on this Wednesday morning. Bison Media Zone coming up in a half hour. Jeff Kolpak will join me here on our BMZ set. We'll chat some hoops and football, all kind of good stuff coming up in just a little bit. Wanted to put a bow on things as we were getting ready for the USD Montana game. University of North Dakota football season came to an end on Saturday afternoon in Stephenville, Texas, as the Fighting Hawks fell to Tarleton State 31-13. It's already been an active couple of days. That is where we're at now. Between now and January 11th is basically no sleep for any football coach if you're not playing football. Tom Miller joins us to wrap things up on UND's football season. Been awesome to get a chance to talk with Tom all year. First, we were just visiting off air. You had an up-close look at Tarleton. Give us on the outside, because their name is bandied about for FBS movement as well. What do we make of Tarleton State and its facilities and potential move upward?
Yeah, it definitely was a nice facility there. I was impressed with the size of it. Field was nice. Press box was really nice. It is a very big stadium, and when you don't fill it, sometimes that it doesn't exactly give off a Walker Is vibe. Just because it's a hard facility to fill. What I thought is interesting is you drive into town in Stephenville, sign says 20,000 population, and the football capacity is 24,000. So, I don't know how many towns you can say that about, but the football stadium is bigger than the town.
Okay, so we were debating this. The box score for Saturday said 19,742. Was it even close to that?
I mean, yeah. Is it crazy to say like half of that? I don't know where they came up with that figure. They do have some some of these warmer weather places have those like tents adjacent to the end zone there. And so there were some of these like makeshift suites that maybe I didn't fully count. North Dakota did have a good contingent in the end zone. But boy, those seats climb and climb forever, and they were not filled.
Give me your assessment of how the game played out. Obviously, Jerry Kaminsky played. What do we make of how UND played on Saturday?
Yeah, I think it was just kind of an extension of what we had seen here the last maybe 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Just defensively, it felt like UND had to be so perfect in order to succeed. Offensively, they lost their mojo right about the South Dakota game. I felt like, I think the task for North Dakota right now is to try to get a place where they can find the Jerry Kaminsky Kansas State version. And there's a lot of chicken and egg that goes on here. Was he put in, great positions to succeed here or there? I think, North Dakota could have done some different things offensively too to make his life a little bit easier. But it was pretty clear that the second half of the season was not the offense that we had witnessed in the first half. And only part of that is the opponent. Like, obviously the schedule got way tougher. Yep. But even like you sprinkled in a Murray State in there, and the offense didn't click on all cylinders. And Tennessee Tech, UND pulls away in that one and almost masks the fact that they played really poorly offensively.
Right, considering that was a rock fight for about 3.5 quarters before they finally pulled away on that. Preseason poll 7th. They win 8 games. They get their first road FCS playoff win. Is it too early to step back and evaluate how year one with Eric Schmidt went, or we can evaluate that now?
Yeah, I think just based on wins and losses, it doesn't sound that great. But I think the manner in which they went down, I think year one has to be considered a success. You inherited a team that went winless on the road, that really could lay some clunkers. And this was just a very difficult schedule. And when you look back, who did they lose to? Tarleton, North Dakota State, South Dakota, Montana, Kansas State. There's not a garbage team among that 6.
Nope, there's no clunker at all. That's what, again, I don't know if there's any solace in that, but again, and they were in virtually all of those games as well. But I think you made a great point, and we were talking with Aidan Bouman about this in the first hour, because that game, I think, determined both team seasons. USD went up. I don't want to say UND went down, but it certainly was not where they were prior to that game in Vermilion.
Yeah, absolutely. Boy, is it kind of wild how the narratives can change in a hurry,
yes.
Right? Like, it was kind of the whole first half of the season was how did South Dakota get here? And to some extent, how did North Dakota get here? Yep. And then they evened out a bit, and South Dakota took on a different path. It's kind of funny. I viewed that South Dakota loss like a real clunker, that North Dakota had some major issues to figure out. And, as we maybe look back, it was just kind of like oh, okay. These are two fairly even teams that do this to each other at home for the last 50 years.
All right, so now, obviously, the offseason began right away Sunday night with the news of Sawyer Seidel heading into the portal. First off, not a surprise, I have to imagine, but how did Eric Schmidt react to that on Monday?
Yeah, he didn't address that specifically. Talked a lot in generalities about the transfer portal. Just from reading between the lines, I think Sawyer Seidel was the leading candidate since August to be in the transfer portal. I didn't bat an eye personally in terms of surprise level. I just, I think he was very interested in NIL, and he had kind of made some of that known all the way back to fall camp. And I think when North Dakota came out with its first depth chart of the fall that I had ever seen of an Eric Schmidt staff, and it had Xavier Lee at number 1 and Gavin Zebarth at number 2.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, boy, that's sending a message to Sawyer Seidel that they want to get him locked in and focused. And so obviously a very talented dude who's going to be missed offensively. I don't think anybody in Grand Forks was surprised that took place.
Is this a direct line with his brother at the University of Minnesota? That's a slam dunk from what you're hearing, or are there other suitors that are out there?
I don't know if I would assume that he starts the process keeping the doors wide open. But for months, I've kind of thought that, his favorite landing spot, I have to imagine, would be Minnesota.
Any others that you would expect or anticipate that could potentially enter here over the next couple weeks?
Boy, who knows who's coaching?
Good point. You're right. Yeah. We talked about that at the top of the show now with Jimmy Rogers leaving. Danny Freund is out there, and it looks like Tyler Roll is going to get the Iowa State job. So, I mean, there are names out there that we don't know where they're going to be, which obviously will attract players to said positions as well.
Yeah, I mean, the two big names that the Grand Forks Herald would be following would be Danny Freund and Jake Landry.
Yes.
I've been searching their name on Twitter as often as I can to make sure I'm not missing anything. But outside of that, yeah, you're always looking for a connection like that. Kansas State always kind of got in the mix in the Midwest.
Yes.
Iowa State has. So those are kind of the teams that I would think would be in here.
Lance Rucker's season was amazing. He has another year, too. That's a guy that I know, I think Schmidt even said in a postgame, we got to find a way to pay the guy. I think he was flat out saying that, but that's a guy you look at. I don't know how you stave off. NDSU's in the same boat that Jackrabbits are. When you get to FCS All-American status, those are the guys that the big schools are looking at.
Yeah, and I don't know how the injury plays into it now. That game really took a fast turn when UND couldn't get at the quarterback the way they could with Lance Rucker on Saturday, because he had one strip sack and the other they called an incomplete pass, and I think they could have taken an extra look at it. He might have had 2 strip sacks in the first half before he got injured. So incredible run in the postseason. And yeah, after the Tennessee Tech game, Eric Schmidt gets to the microphone and says, pick up your phone, call, donate, keep a guy like this in Grand Forks. So, everybody knows it. There's no surprise here. How does that injury impact whether he's more likely to stay or more likely to go? I don't know how this works in that transfer game. But if they were somehow able to keep him, that would really surprise me. I think he could go get his bag. Eric Schmidt's really got to say, hey, you're going to collect stats on this defense. We have designed this defense to run through you.
Yeah. And also the fact that, if there's a potential to go to the next level, that you can do that there. That's the big thing, if you can somehow sell that. But if a guy's getting 7 figures, you tip your hat and say, good luck to you, right? That's the way we're at now.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
You look at the seniors that are leaving on this team, 20 or so guys. Z-Bar is going to be hard to replace. Obviously, Seth Anderson up front. What are the big losses here outside of the portal that they're going to have to somehow stymie that for next season?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm curious to see what happens in the secondary. I'm not exactly sure, based on eligibility, based on what the NCAA comes up with. They've got some guys who are JUCO guys who are they done? Are they not done? What's the NCAA going to say? What's the courts going to say? But regardless of that, they need defensive backs and they need wide receivers.
Yeah.
Even if everybody comes back, they need to be longer. They need to be more dangerous offensively. Eric Schmidt brought up the phrase about 4 or 5 times during the course of the year. He said, we've got guys that can get the yards that the offense is designed to get. We need to go find guys that are going to get the yards themselves. And I think that's really his big push here. It's going to run around. Dang's going to get his opportunity to break out. And I'm not, we'll see if BJ Fleming's back. And after that, jobs are pretty wide open.
That's intriguing to see. And obviously what they're going to add. He was very active in the portal as soon as he got the job last year. I'm really intrigued to see how aggressive Schmidt is this time around.
Yeah, and I do think, though, that, he's very convinced that this has to be built from within. This has to be built through recruiting. There's kind of I think he believes that he can find guys through recruiting that can play above the guys that you're going to get through the portal based on certain positions.
Yep.
I've seen UND bring in guys and then they Grant Nolan's a great example. He comes in at cornerback and UND had brought in a couple of JUCO guys and the true freshman from Missouri plays. And so I think Eric Schmidt is really determined to find these kids through recruiting. If for no other reason than that's the financially responsible thing to do. Without paying guys.
We're a week removed from signing day. Will you get an overview of the signing class that they brought in, his first official one?
Yeah, and we've talked about how just based on competing offers, it's significantly improved over the past. I think what really stands out to me is he recruited bodies that are projectable to play at the next level. I think one thing that's really hurt North Dakota has been just the fact that they haven't put anybody in the NFL. It's got to be hard to pitch the fact that, hey, you got to stay at North Dakota. We're putting guys in the NFL, because that's how South Dakota State kept some guys, right? Maybe a Sam Hagan doesn't go to Washington State because he says, I can get to the NFL from here. I'm good. I think in this class, Coach Schmidt really got guys who are 6'5", 6'7", 220 pounds. I can just see some very projectable frames that might help them get guys that can move on.
Be interested to see on that. I got an email to ask you on basketball right now, which is obviously it's not been good to start. What do you make of what's been going on with the hoops, both men and women's teams in Grand Forks right now?
Well, I think it's a good thing the hockey team's winning.
and football was playing too, right?
Yeah. How's that for an answer?
Yeah. Yep.
You know, women's basketball, maybe I underestimated the fact that that program lost 9 girls, you know, probably 6 or 7 that were going to be contributors.
Real good contributors.
I like some of the things that the women's basketball coach Hutter had done in the offseason. But boy, they look disjointed right now. It's a tough watch.
Yeah.
And honestly, when I watch, all I think is, boy, that's going to take time if it's going to work. And you know, on the men's side of things, it's a little different. Like they're losing games, mind you, but there's little glimmers that this team might at least be interesting.
And they've played all over. I mean, they went from Hawaii. I mean, they've barely been home. Now they've actually got a chance to string some home games together, which is, I know that's part of mid-major basketball, but that it's been tough. You see the scores come in, and they're not competitive right now. That's the hard sell if we're now turning the page to 2026 and conference plays around the corner. The games haven't been close so far.
Yeah, no, women's basketball has a heck of a long way to go.
Yeah.
Got to hope that the girl from Kindred putting up some shots in the gym right now.
Hopefully to get something going there. Awesome stuff all year, bud. We really appreciate you contributing on football. It was great. Have a great holiday if I don't talk to you beforehand, and thanks again for doing this morning.
Absolutely. Take care, Dom. Good to chat.
There he goes. Tom Miller joins us, giving us everything UND football all season long, and an intriguing offseason begins for the Fighting Hawks. Just looking quickly at the 26 Fighting Hawks schedule. Now, they still have the opportunity to add a 12th game. Remember, that's now allowable for FCS teams beginning in 2026. They have St. Thomas at home to open the season next year. They go to Portland State, who's not good. They're still trying to find a head coach there. Their FBS game next year is Nebraska, which is for the second time in, 4 or 5 years, they get a chance to play in Lincoln, which everybody up here is immediately jealous. I don't care what Bison fans say. They have Northern Iowa at home. They go to Terre Haute. They host South Dakota. They go to Brookings, go to Carbondale back-to-back. That's tough at the end of October. Home for Murray at Youngstown. Of course, the season finale is against North Dakota State up in Grand Forks because of the scheduling quirk with the Bison. We're trying to get the Jacks and UND separated. That'll officially start next year. SDSU is a home game for NDSU, but they go to Grand Forks for a second year in a row, and that'll be the finale. So that's what they have on tap, and some question marks on that roster to address going into next year. Good stuff there. All right, we'll take our final break. We come back. We'll wrap things up here. We got our Bison Media Zone show coming up at 10:35 to get us ready for everything going on. Big week of Bison hoops as each team on the road. That's coming up. We'll get some emails in, and we'll wrap things up here on a Wednesday morning. We're back after this. All right, wrapping things up here on a Wednesday morning. Snow still coming down here, so be careful out there for the next little bit. Looks like we're going to go from moderately okay to bitter, bitter cold. As soon as we got done with Tom, some breaking UND roster news there. On 3 reporting that North Dakota All-Conference defensive back Antonio Blewett will enter the transfer portal. His rep is telling Pete Nakos 79 career tackles, 3 TFLs, 3 picks. He has 1 year of eligibility remaining. He got injured, to remember, against North Dakota State in the game up there in early November. And that's the 3rd prominent Fighting Hawk now to enter the portal. Now, on the flip side, I know Kolpak has a story on this that's now up on Inforum about the Bison guys. I'm going to save this for our opening couple minutes on Bison Media Zone that, okay, we're 4 or 5 days since the season ended and nobody's announced yet. Yeah, that's great, but again, doesn't mean that there are overtures out there and that the head football coach is working overtime to make sure that these guys stay. The problem is it's not now. It's next week when they disperse because the thing about winter camp, as they dubbed it, was the ability they were here together, and the outside distractions weren't there. Now that that's gone, and the feeding frenzy, they wanted the vultures, however you want to describe it, they're out there knowing full well, look at the football team that the Bison have. That's one that we'd like to find a couple guys that could help us out. And the Green and Gold Fund can do everything in their power. They can raise a significant amount of money, and they have. But to fight off what a Cole Wisniewski got from Texas Tech, what Marty Brown got from Miami, that's a losing battle. You're not going to win that one. No matter how much you want to cry about loyalty and sticking with the program and development, all that's great. But at some point, dollars are going to win out. That's the nature of where we're at. And that's a losing battle 9 out of 10 times for FCS teams. That's exactly what they're facing up against. Some breaking TV news as well for you YouTube TV people that were through the gauntlet of what went down last month. Andrew Marchand from The Athletic reporting, starting next year, 2026, that's we're a month away, YouTube TV will have new sports-only plans that will be cheaper than its current $82 per month offering. There is no official pricing yet. It will offer similar news-only and other packages as well. Now that's interesting, considering that the amount of sports that are now offered there, and knowing full well they have the red zone. That, I think, would be intriguing to more people to maybe jump on board, especially now that they've got some sort of long-term deal with Disney now in the boat there. So we'll keep an update on that, because I know plenty that watch our program that either put it on streaming or antenna, or however, they have YouTube TV, because they were wondering when the world that WDAY and ABC were going to make a deal. So we'll keep it posted on that. Couple other things here before we wrap. Email comes in. Dom, if Jake Landry doesn't go to Penn State with Matt Campbell, is there a possibility that Tim Polisic would consider bringing him back as offensive coordinator? Well, there's still an offensive coordinator in Dan Larson first. Well, that's going back to what we were talking about with Tom. I mean, Jake's name is out there, and you don't go – typically you don't go backward, though. He was at the FCS level. And now he was in the Big 12. If he can hitch his wagon to Matt Campbell, you take that as far as you can. That's the road you go. That's why with the Tyler Roll news is intriguing. But he wants to call plays. If he wants to, and he call plays in the Big 12, then you get a chance to do that. And if you're going to pay $1 million, then you're going to go do that. And I'm sure he enjoyed his time in Detroit. I know he did. I talked to him at the start of the season that how things were going. But if there's an opportunity for him to get back in this part of the world and be a play caller, which he loves to do, in the Big 12 with a guy that he knows, and maybe bring in he's got staff members that maybe he does know, and they're going to keep some in an area of the country he certainly knows, then that makes a heck of a lot of sense there. So we'll see, but there's names out there that we're certainly – it's not just the players. Coaches are keeping an eye on as well here over the next few minutes, or days and weeks as well. All right, let's do some What to Watch before we get out of here. What to Watch brought to us by our friends at Northwestern Mutual. Okay, Minnesota men's basketball in action tonight. Biggie for them after their nice win over Indiana last week. Now another step up and challenge with Purdue, 6 o'clock on the Big Ten Network tonight. Really good women's basketball matchup. Number 11 Iowa, number 12 Iowa State. That's at 6 o'clock on ESPN. Two of the top women's basketball teams set to go at it tonight, and the great old rivalry there for the Cy-Hawk game there. And the NBA Cup continues. We had the East games last night, the West tonight, the Suns and the Thunder. Again, the Thunder have lost one game all season long. That's at 6:30 on Amazon Prime. The winners move on to Las Vegas this weekend. We got to roll. Thanks to our guests today, to Drew Trafton, to Aidan Bouman, and Tom Miller. If you missed any of the show, you can podcast it later today at Inforum.com. You can watch a full replay on WDAY+. The Bison Media Zone is minutes away. We'll see everybody on Hot Mic back here tomorrow.